Today we are sponsored by Match Bingo. Whilst watching Premier League games, you can win cash prizes and support your favourite causes all on one app. Purchasing a £2 card on any football fixture gives you multiple ways of winning money. It's so simple, it's so easy to download, to create your Match Bingo account and to purchase their bingo cards. Watch your card automatically populate events that happen throughout the live fixture and win cash prizes by being the first to complete your card. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link below now to get involved with one of the best games available in the footballing world. Welcome back to the Top 6 show as we build up for one of the final. Is it the penultimate weekend of the football?
Mm-hmm.
It is the penultimate weekend of Premier League football. Big games to preview, namely Arsenal travelling to Old Trafford. We've got some big transfer stories, managerial stories to debate, and we're taking a look at the Player of the Year shambles, because it is a shambles, just like I've always told you that player awards are. We've got a brilliant panel tonight. Backed by popular demand, Will is here, a.k.a. Carnage. We've got Henry Wright repping, always with his baseball cap backwards. That's because I've seen his hair and it is not a pleasant sight. Dayo is in the house. He was a late substitute today for Egal. Some will be happy. Some will be frustrated. Let us know in the comments section below. Dizzy is in the house, and I'm glad Dizzy's here. Otherwise, it was going to be KJ. And I love KJ to bits, but when it comes to football opinions, I'd rather listen to my guy, Dizzy. And little Tom is here. I'm glad you've cut that horrible mop off your head, mate. Because honestly, you looked like an anorexic beetle, and it was no good. You know, as in the band, not the bugs. But welcome back to the show, gentlemen. I hope you're all well.
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. The weather's lovely. We got to enjoy this in the UK. We only got this for like another 72 hours max.
It's always raining over there, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it probably rained tonight.
I mean, it's literally been raining here consistently now for like 3 months, 4 months, maybe longer. It's been crazy. So yes, it's nice. Days like today are just beautiful for us Brits. This is sort of, everyone gets the barbecues on. Everyone's walking about in shorts and summer dresses, linen. It's a brilliant time. It's a brilliant time to be alive.
Summer dress season. What time to be alive? Man?
It is. What isn't a good time to be alive is if you've been a Man United fan in recent weeks. But Dizzy, before we get onto the game, we're doing that later in the show. Man United heavily linked now with loads of managers, but Hansi Flick's name has come up. Thoughts on potentially bringing Flick in as the new Manchester United manager?
You know what? I was really heavy into I need to know who the manager is that, you know, United bring in stuff. And like the managers that we've had previously, I was really like, I knew who they were. I knew the profile, the way that they wanted to play and those kind of details. But I was all the way wrong with Erik ten Hag. So I thought he was the guy. So at this point, I'm not going to lie. I don't know. I'm just trusting and believing in the Ratcliffe and the Ineos process, in that they will bring in the right guy, because so far with the other appointments, they seem to have done the things that we need as a club. So as long as it's not Southgate, I am all ears to whoever it is that they bring in. I'm not gonna lie.
Why not the most successful England manager since 1966?
Don't do that, man. Southgate is a fraud. I have said this for so many years. Now, it's actually annoying to keep saying it. I don't want to hear this Southgate talk.
He took England to a final. He's very good man management. He can get new levels out of Harry Maguire. He's done decent with Rashford before. He could bring Sancho back, and we've seen Sancho's been doing so well. Why not Southgate? Why not Gareth?
Southgate didn't even take Sancho when Sancho was in the best form of his life.
Yeah.
So what's he gonna do with him on a week-to-week basis? Yeah, I'm not hearing
I hope for nothing more than Gareth Southgate to go to United. That would be that would be the peak. That would be the peak after this season. If they get Southgate in, a man whose CV at club level is relegation with Middlesbrough, perfect.
I think he got to a European final with Middlesbrough as well. I swear he did.
Did he?
I have no idea.
Is that when he
I
said
swear,
it?
I swear they got to. I swear Middlesbrough got to a. I only think I know this because I used to live in a house share in East London, and there was 3 smoggies who are men from Middlesbrough. For anyone that doesn't know, and that was the Matt Cronelli. I think his name was Matt Cronelli. Scored some crazy goals. Where are we looking at? UEFA Cup runners up in 05-06. I swear. Southgate was the manager.
It wasn't Southgate. You know, it was Steve McLaren.
Oh, it's Steve McLaren, was it? Oh, okay.
Southgate replaced him.
I'll say this though. Me personally, I want Thomas Tuchel. I think from his Chelsea days, I think he gets a lot of disrespect with how it all panned out. But I think if you look at it retrospectively, I think Todd Bowley and them man did a terrible job in firing him and bringing in who they brought in the end. Obviously, you can give him flack for his PSG days, but it looks to me like PSG is a bit of a poison chalice. You could argue United is also a poison chalice, and obviously, what's happened at Bayern's happened at Bayern. I think the loss yesterday might skew people's perception a little bit. But he said that Harry Kane's back went, so if we're gonna, he kind of had to take him off if his back was gone. But I think he knows the league. I think I liked the way that Chelsea played when he was in the league, and we've seen it to be a successful system, and he's won things historically. So that would be my pick personally.
Yeah, I feel like that's just an easy pick for the United board as well. Like Thomas Tuchel, he's going to be available, and I think if you look at all the managers that's around like world football right now that's open, it's not really that many ones that stand out. If I'm being honest, so Tuchel, that seems like a layup.
But United need a total rebuild, and I don't think Tuchel is the guy that wants to do that for them. United need a manager that is literally going to gut out everything, like what Arteta did. But that's what United need right now. United don't need a Thomas Tuchel that's going to come in and then cover up the paper up the cracks by winning the trophy, winning the Carabao, or winning the FA Cup in the meantime, and not really building United. Because if he leaves in 2 years, they're back to where they were. They need to get rid of the rot. They need to get rid of players. They need to get rid of backroom staff, which they've already done now. They need the right people working in the right. Like, look at what they did, what Arsenal did. Arteta comes in, Edu comes in. They fire doctors. They fire literally people were out the door, just gone, and they brought in the people who are willing to do the job and start from the very beginning. That's what United need. I don't see. He's a good coach. And one of the major things that Tuchel has had as a problem is always with the guys in the top management. He's always had problems with top management people wherever he went to. He's great with the players. The players love him. He's a good manager on the pitch. He knows how to, he knows how to win. He knows how to win. But he always has something with the board. He's always had issues with every board. So that's one thing you want to look at. As a United who's rebuilding, you don't want the first person rebuilding for you being someone that might eventually over 2 seasons or 3 seasons have something with the board. He just sends you back to the.
He's a manager that you bring in 3 or 4 years down the line.
Yeah, like, you need a manager that will stay 3 or 4 years down the line for this one, and the fans have to understand.
Challenging. That's why you bring him in.
See, I think the unique situation that United's in, or the unique stature and position that United is as a club, we don't the status of United, you don't have time. You won't have 4 or 5 years to try and figure stuff out. Because that's just not what United are. I think you have to show us something. You have to show a way of winning. You have to show us that you can develop a level of consistency. Essentially, out the gate. Is that wrong? Maybe. But United, the history of United demands teams to win. And
but that's what I'm saying. United has to come to the fact right now that it's changed. Listen here.
Oh. Lost them. So I'm gonna finish my point. Thank you very much. So what I'm saying is the stature of United demand you to win now. Have fans shifted their expectations a little bit in terms of it's gonna need time. Yes. Do we give him 1 or 2 years? I think he'll be afforded a year or two to kind of slowly build. But I think, similar to what Ten Hag has done, I think how he has lost the confidence of a lot of United fans and everybody that talks about United is that he showed us going this way and then he went this way with it. And then in going this way, he's absolutely like his forms deserted him. The performances have deserted him. Everything around the club feels toxic now. But if you have a Tuchel and it just keeps going in an upward trajectory, I think United fans will afford him the luxury of, we have a new board in place. When it's not the Glazer style, so we can't expect it to go the way that it has under the Glazers. He's going to need time to develop his way of playing, and Ineos and them are going to need time to really get the identity of United back. That's what I personally see. But again, I could be wrong because I was wrong about Ten Hag. So
can I say something? Correct me if I'm wrong.
In bringing Tuchel in now. There's no point in bringing Tuchel in when you're doing this whole board revamp that want to do it a certain way. This board, the way that Jim Ratcliffe runs his other clubs, all these people that you bring in high up positions are there to run the football club there and effectively to make the Manchester United manager be more of a head coach. That's the way that United is shaping up this entire board restructuring. Thomas Tuchel is a guy who wants his transfers and doesn't like being usurped. So if you bring him in, you effectively made this whole 4-month drawn-out saga for Dan Ashworth pointless. And you effectively made the whole thing with Jason Wilcox pointless because Thomas Tuchel wants to go above their heads to buy players. That's how he's always been.
I actually think I get your point, but it's all dependent on what the project is. If the project from day one is we are going to go for, and I'm using the phrases people on social media use as opposed to my own. If the phrase is we're gonna the way Tuchel plays and the kind of players that he wants, that's the direction we're going in as a club, then it's going to fit perfectly. Then there isn't a problem. But whatever we decide to do, there has to be a plan at the beginning for after that manager. We can't build the club's image based on one particular manager. We've tried doing that 5 times and it falls apart. So I hear you, Tom, 100%. It could be the wrong decision. If the club want to play football the way the deserved was Tuchel, even though his CV is better.
Haven't they already said that, though? Haven't the hierarchy come out and said they want possession-based football? Yeah, they want a young team.
There's been some briefings about it, but they haven't gone into specifics, and they'll never go into specifics. So, I'd be horrified if Man United told the world exactly what all their plans were, because then you're letting everybody else know exactly what you're trying to do and achieve. But I agree with Dizzy. Whoever it is, like Hansi Flick, again, decent CV. When you look at a lot of the candidates we're looking at, has one of the best CVs out there. He hasn't really had like a moment in recent years that's made everybody go, oh, maybe he's not quite it. The problem with managers, they go in and out of fashion quicker than haircuts. So they can have a De Zerbi this time last year. Nobody was slagging him off. Now, he loses his best 2 or 3 players, has one of the biggest injury crises in Premier League history, still gets a respectable finish for a club their size with their income, and everyone's talking about him like he's a scrub. It's strange to me, the lack of context being applied. But where Dizzy's right is whether it's Flick, whether it's Tuchel, whether it's Southgate, whether it's Potter or De Zerbi, they have to start and do well. And what I mean, but I'm not expecting anyone to win the Premier League year one. What has got to happen is Man United fans at the very least have got to feel, one, an element of entertainment when we're watching football. I don't think being entertained is the be-all and end-all, but I think it plays a part. And the second element is we've got to see progression. And when we go into games, feel like, well, maybe not the favourites. You take the game against Arsenal at the weekend or the FA Cup final. What we need to build within year one is that City are the favourites, but we've got a chance. Right now, we don't believe we've got a... I know some United fans say, no, you've got to speak with chest and you've got to support your club. And that's fine if you want to do that. But I can only speak honestly. I go into most football matches now, as I did at the end of Ollie's tenure, as I did at the end of Jose's tenure. And I have almost no belief we're going to win these big matches. And that is what we've got to get away from. Managers will be given time at Old Trafford if the football is decent to very good. And if we can see progression and have chance of beating teams, then there's something to get behind at that point. That's why I'm a little bit miffed that certain Spurs fans are turning on Big Ange. It's year one, it's crazy turning on him right now, in my opinion. He needs to be given a little bit more time. So I've said all along, I'm a bit like Dizzy. I'm not sold on anyone. There's not one manager we're linked to, like credibly linked to, where I go, yes, he's the guy.
Well, I mean, you were linked to Zidane, though.
No, we're not
never
putting
going
United.
United.
Sorry, you know what I think. I think it's the feel like. So let me say this: being an Arsenal fan and having been there 20 years, not winning the the Premiership, but at least winning other trophies. But also looking at your team every time they played, you're like, we could lose, lose. Like that feeling, right? As a fan, was very annoying. It was just an annoying feeling to know you're going to wake up in the morning to watch a game, and your team probably could get slapped 4-0. On any day, like you just didn't know what to expect. But what Mikel Arteta has changed for most Arsenal fans that I know of, that I hang out with, is that feeling of even when we're a goal down or 2 goals down in the game now, we're like, these boys can come back. Like there's a trust in the team that they'll fight till the very end. They will not down tools on the pitch. They'll give 110%, even if they eventually lose the game. And people throw out the baby on the bathwater. They say, "Oh my God, they lost that game." The very next, they're like, well, maybe it's because they were tired. They start making excuses for them because they know that these boys will give their all. So I think what United need first, whoever comes in, whatever manager it is, it has to be a manager that can start giving fans that belief again. That this Manchester United team, every time they get on the pitch, they would.
Dayo, you are right, Dayo. But this is what I was alluding to before, but just before you spoke. Which, by the way, fine that you cut in. I'm not saying you shouldn't cut in. I'm not sold on any one particular manager. I've made some jokes that I'd rather us go into administration than get Southgate. but what we have got for the first time since Fergie left is football decision makers at the club. I've been asking for that for a decade. So I am, even if I disagree with the managerial appointment, I'm going to give it a fair amount of grace. I'm going to say, okay, let's see what they're doing here. Maybe we've got to aim for a lower level manager because the big guys aren't interested in starting that rebuild process. And I don't mean this with disrespect to Mikel Arteta, but he was an absolute fledgling with no experience, and it was a huge risk. Which, yes, you've got an FA Cup, which is great. Yes, you're challenging for Premier League titles, but maybe it was too difficult at that point for Arsenal to get someone that was looked at as world-class and elite to come in and be the person that guts you out, because it doesn't work for everybody. And we all know that it can damage your reputation when you fail at a big club. Yeah. So that's why I'm being open-minded about who comes in. But you are right, Dayo. It's about us having belief in the direction we're going in. And as Dizzy alluded to, last season, started the first 2 games awfully. Then for 6 months, up until that League Cup final, I started to believe and fall in love with this team again. Yep. I'm not saying we had the best football in the league. I'm not saying we're the best team in the league, but we beat a lot of our rivals, mainly at home, but we had a good run. We got ourselves into the top 4. We won a trophy. We were playing well. And my view was, if we keep going in this direction, add better players, we can just keep getting better and better. But because there's no direction as a club and the manager essentially has got carte blanche over what he does, he's gone, I'm going in this direction now. Nobody stopped him. And the whole thing fell apart. And it's those little mistakes that we need to rectify as a club moving forward. Whatever direction we start to go in, we can't continuously keep doing U-turns under new managers or under the same manager, because you build a Frankenstein squad, there's no continuity, and it becomes a big problem. So look, would Flick be a good appointment? He could be. He could be. But it's, for me, I'm more focused on what the Ashworths, the Wilcotts, and the Baradas are doing, as much as I'm focused on how bad Dayo's internet is today as well.
Yeah. One thing I will say that on the belief piece, I think why I don't want them to go for like the lower ranks, the Graham Potters, the Southgates, the man that he's not gonna be here long, but he's gonna be part of the rebuilding process. The problem with that is, as soon as stuff starts going wrong, which in a 38-game season, is very possible that stuff can go wrong. Especially, let's say, after season 2, let's say things start going wrong. One, the fans are going to be like, who is this fraud that you've brought in? We told you he wasn't going to be good enough, and now he's failing. So then the fans will lose belief in him anyway. So then and as soon as the fans lose faith, everything gets a bit sour, it all gets a bit toxic. The ownership and their competency comes into question, because this is their first big move, bringing in whoever the manager that they bring in next. That's the first big move. That is obviously the Omar Baradas, the Dan Ashworths, and them, man, they're behind the scenes, bit massive moves, but we can't see them. On the pitch, the manager, we can see him. The players, obviously, we can see them. And then thirdly, for the ownership, as soon as some things start going wrong, the ownership could be like, oh, well, that wasn't really our guy anyway. Look what we can bring in this time. And then he's gone before his time anyway. So in my opinion, I think you bring in your guy, kind of like Arsenal did. They brought in Arteta, and they were like, good, bad, or indifferent, this is our guy. We're sticking with him. He can go 8th, 5th, but we're sticking with him because he's our guy and we got a process that we're trying to build. Obviously, if they don't want to be part of the rebuild process, it's a different ball game. But to me, I go with my guy now, and I tell the fans, listen, this is our guy, good, bad, or indifferent. He's going to be sticking around for a while. We've got about 2 years before things start getting good, and we genuinely believe that. Give us some time and see what happens. That's where I'm at personally.
But does it really matter, though, if it's still that same crop of players? Like, I think the next manager is going to probably fail anyways because there's too many scrubs in your squad that you're going to have to rely on.
Yeah, but yeah, I get where you're coming from, Will, and I see a lot of United fans say that, but a lot of this squad will also get cleared out. I am absolutely adamant that between Barada and Ashworth, they will look at this, and the new manager, of course, and they're going to clear this squad out. And I think that there is a lot of overhang from previous managers, previous regimes, previous projects that absolutely failed. And the biggest failure has not been moving individuals on quick enough and soon enough. But I would imagine with the people running the club, if we are even just semi-successful, 3/4 successful, you'll find that 70% of this current squad isn't here in 2 summers' time. At the end of 2 summers' time, I would be surprised if that was the case. But look, if they do keep this squad, where you're right, Will, if they do keep the majority of this squad for another 2 years, then of course everything's going to fail, because a lot of people are like, well, Ten Hag isn't the main problem, it's the players. I'm happy to accept that. I think both areas have got to be renewed. The difference is you can't slowly phase the manager out. You can't do it. The manager either has to stay or go. And I just believe my issue isn't even really with Ten Hag when I've calmed down. I want a completely fresh start. The only thing that can't be 100% fresh is the squad. But this summer, I think you'll see 7, 8, 9 people go and new individuals come in. But what can help you? You've only got to look at the Newcastle example and listen to what the likes of Longstaff said. That when the new ownership really got involved and started making moves, you felt a different atmosphere. You felt a different... Newcastle felt like a different football club. That is what we've got to hope from the summer onwards. The players walk back in through that door and they go, Jesus, it's different. Because that way you can get away with it for a year or two of some of the burning embers of before being there, as long as the new culture is the strongest element there. And we know there's bad culture at the club because staff that work at the training ground are currently unhappy because they've been told off for being messy, or they've been told off because they've got to come back in to the offices and work. But I'm not surprised. I reckon if you went in there just for a normal day job at Man United, you'd be like, Jesus Christ, one of the biggest clubs in the world being run like this. I think every facet of that club from top to bottom has got problems. Even the elements that don't affect the team, I guarantee you it is as scruffy, as messed up and unprofessional as it can possibly. It just has to be. There's no way you can foul this badly but be run well. There's no business, no team, no family in the world that is run this poorly that becomes successful as a unit. There never has been, and there's not a single example of it anywhere that's been run this badly. Viewers, give us your thoughts and your feelings. This here says, Tom, smile, lad. Looks like you've lost your dog, bro. Tom gets too engrossed on his phone that's below him, so he starts staring down. That's what he does. Don't you, Tom? Because I do it. What is the firm? It is just me, or has the quality of manager dropped over the last 6 years? However, Man U can't afford to mess about. I mean, a lot of people have said that there isn't like those standout candidates that everybody wants anymore.
I think they're just already taken. Like the managers everyone wants are already at clubs that they're not going to leave.
Yeah,
I don't think the quality
we hit like the evolution point in football where the style of manager changed. Right now, you've got all the young managers who in the next 5 years will become that next crop of manager. Everyone goes, oh, I would take him or him or him. But the guys who you wanted 5 years ago, so in like end of the 2010s, like your Contes of this world, your Mourinho's of this world, they're now phased out. So you wipe them off the list. Therefore, a lot of the names that were getting thrown around for these big jobs aren't really being considered. The ones that stood the test of time are already in a job. or won't accept the move to United for whatever reason. So it's just about looking at the next group of managers coming through and waiting on that one potentially, or taking your gamble now at the crop that are there and going, if we pick him and we make sure that he's got the right structure around him, he can blossom into this at the football club. I think the thing with United, though, is a lot of United fans seem to understand that the players are the problem, and yet they get on the manager at the first possible opportunity, a lot of them. If this next manager that's come in, if he's still stuck with the same crop of players that were there from Jose days, and they go with the manager first, that's the cycle that needs to break. Everyone goes on about, we need to break the cycle of sacking managers. No, the fans need to break the cycle of blaming the manager for managers sort of 7 years ago, their problems and their mistakes, just because the structure hasn't been good enough to sort that out, and they've been left with this mess. The next manager that comes in needs to be given the time.
I hear you on that completely. Arteta took over his squad in 14th in January, won the FA Cup, and the team got the team up to 8th. Saying 8th, 5th is disingenuous. I don't think Dizzy was having a pop, though, at Arsenal. He was just making a sort of point there. But there are peaks and troughs, and that's why I've said to Spurs fans, just because you start well doesn't mean the trajectory is continuously moving upwards in the short term. You've got Oliver, is it pronounced Grosner, the Palace manager? What 3 months he's had. Yeah. I remember Patrick Vieira starting off well, and it faded because people will work out what he's doing and counteract it. It's then whether or not you can adjust and change little nuances about your team to go to another level. You've got to persevere through that. The problem is, Man United started the season poorly. But if the manager would have changed some things around, fixed the hole in our midfield, and we started winning again, you forgive those little moments. But it's when you persist with that same system for 36 games, it becomes untenable. True fans have to believe in the process, but today's fans only believe in guaranteed success like the Arteta doubters at my club. So again, I don't think you have to believe in the process to be a true fan, because you're allowed to have your own thoughts. You don't have to just agree with the rhetoric of your club or particular fans. If you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it. I will say that, Mo. I'm someone that's stuck up for Arsenal the last few years, but you are allowed to disagree with it. I don't think it makes you not a true fan. If we employ Southgate, and I don't think it's a good appointment, that doesn't mean I'm not a good Man United fan, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
And I'll say what's the problem with? Oh, my fault. Go ahead, bro.
All I was gonna say is really quickly. I'll say this: it's like Chelsea this season. Everybody was slandering Chelsea, like, they mudded their crap, blah blah blah. But I was saying it's never a Poch out type situation, because if you actually watch the games, the amount of chances that they create is actually quite good. All they have to do is start converting some of these chances, and they'll be higher up in the table. And it's because of the way that they play. Now that they've started converting the chances, you're seeing them slowly climbing up the table. Now it doesn't look all doom and gloom. Whereas United, we're scraping by games, and I was like, this is not going to last. And now we're the ones in the mud. It's just one of them.
But like, what's wrong with people thinking that success has to be instant, though? Because I think that is, at the end of the day, all that really matters is coming away the season with a trophy. Like, if you don't win a trophy, you have nothing to show for that season.
It's a really great point, Will. And I understand. Me and Lee Gunner did a lot of shows together, and we don't disagree about the standards that the Arsenals and Man United should have. Our only disagreement is how long it takes to get to a stage where you've got to enforce those standards in terms of not being at them or celebrating achieving them. And what I mean by that is this: any Liverpool fan saying that they're on a 4-year rebuild now that Slot's coming in is bullshitting. They are looking for a comfort blanket and an excuse for if they don't win, because they're a title contending team with a very good squad that they might be able to make better. If Pep leaves this summer, or if Ancelotti leaves Real Madrid, there's no rebuild from where those teams are, because they're at the top of the tree. Man United's situation now is highly different. We have a squad full of lots of substandard players that's been put together for 3 or 4 different managers and styles of play. The culture at the club is broken. There's so many elements that need fixing. To bring in a new manager and to expect that team to do what City are doing instantly is disingenuous at best, delusional at worst. Expecting them to eventually get to that stage, I think is absolutely acceptable. But I view, again, a lot of fans, again, some will always kick the can down the street. I don't agree with them. But if me and you start in the gym on the same day, okay, but I've been going to the gym for 15 years, I've had a month off, you've never lifted weights in your life, would it be acceptable to expect us to both be able to lift the same amount of weights within the space of a month? Probably not.
No. Yeah,
so I think so that's what I would say to that thing of instant success. Context has to be applied to the club and the situation they're currently in.
Yeah, but I think in terms of like the instant success, it's not like I'm saying, well, if the new Man United manager comes in, he has to win the league and he has to be competing for every single trophy. But you could win FA Cup, you could win Carabao Cups. Like, I think you have to be winning something, especially when you're at a big club like Manchester United. Like, that always has to be the standard.
Yeah, I think you've got to aim to. I think you've got to aim to, but it's context within that. Yeah. Have you done what I don't think what helped Big And this year was the way he kind of threw the cup competitions and the teams that he put out earlier on. So say it is Flick that becomes our manager and we've got a good League Cup tie. We're at home to Nottingham Forest in the third round, or we're probably going to be in the second round next year if we're not in Europe. But if we do that and we play a really weak team and get knocked out early, that's a sort of a blotch on the paper. That's a smudge. That was really poor. So I agree with that, but you have to contest. But then if you have a really good season and end up getting third in the league against all odds and you're playing nice football, I wouldn't go, right, because you didn't win the League Cup, you've got to go now because there's still progression as a team. I think that the situation is multi-layered, but I do agree that when a team is at the top and is playing well and you maybe change managers, you should expect, like, I don't think Liverpool fans should be lowering their expectations next year for Slot. They're a title contending team. They're going to spend money on him. He's the manager that's been picked by Edwards, who is the guy they believe is the best at running football clubs in the world. They can't be saying 4-year rebuild. So that's where I would agree with it.
It's the context, isn't it? Like when Spurs got Man City in the FA Cup, like, or if Man United under their first year get, I don't know, Liverpool away, and you get knocked out, it's not going to be, but he threw the trophy in the bin. It's like with Ange, you can critique him and you can be critical on him and you can disagree with some of the things he's done this season. But to want him out because we're fifth in our first season, to me, is madness. Like, we've still got Conte players here. We've still got Jose signings here. We've still got Poch signings here. Until he eventually gets his whole team together, like what Arteta has, I don't really think it's fair to judge him. And let's be honest, just on Tottenham for a second, fifth roughly is where everyone thought we'd be anyway. So, like, people who want Ange out, to me, it's a little bit mad.
Oh, yeah, but and can I say something? He doesn't have any in-game management. I think like that's the problem with him, is that he only has one style and he sticks to it. He doesn't care what's happening. You guys could be conceding goals left and right, and then he's still going to still play the same kind of way. So I think that's the problem with him.
With the quality of players we've got are nowhere near the actual standard and style he wants to play. Like, we're playing Emerson Royale inverting up against Mohamed Salah. You look at his defensive ability, he's absolutely all over the place and cost us 2 goals. So
then if you know that, then how come the manager doesn't? Because
he's going to keep playing like that and hope that Daniel Levy and Langer and Rob McKenzie and all our scouts and director of football give him the personnel he wants.
And he also has to implement a style in the club first. And of course you can walk and chew gum, which means you can implement a style and have in-game management, but you already know that these players are not good enough. So in-game management with them might even throw them off. Just tell them, play my style, try to make sure you master it. So whoever else is coming in that you're bringing in is coming into a system that everybody already understands, right? Yeah. Because if these players are not good enough, and then in-game management, you're not telling Emerson Royal,
you've got to sort this internet out. If you are streaming in 2024 and you're not putting I still call it a LAN cable, but whatever that cable is, Ethernet cable. If you're streaming, are you streaming without an Ethernet cable? Are you streaming with Wi-Fi?
No. See, my Ethernet is at the back there. Unless I now move the entire studio around.
No. Just get yourself a long Ethernet cable and plug it in.
I have one here. I'm using it for my ATEM mixer. And I have to plug in another one on this side. So this laptop doesn't have an Ethernet. The laptop I'm streaming off on this side of the studio.
Oh no, yeah, you need it. You need it.
I'll swap it around now. Give me a second.
Yeah, finish your point, mate. Finish your point, bro.
No, I was just saying. I said, look, if you're already implementing the system as a coach and the players are not good enough, you don't want to give them too much in-game management. You just what Tuchel has done this season, getting Tottenham to 5th with how terrible those players are and implementing his style. And we saw how good his style was at the beginning of the season. I think he's done a great job so far, right?
Agreed.
Another person No, he's done a good job so far with what he has, the tools he has. Like, there's a big difference between having a player like let me see, who can I use as an example? A Declan Rice in your team that you can tell in the middle of the game after scoring 2 goals, drop deeper, play as a 6, leave that number 8 role and come here. The players in Tottenham are not good enough to do it. So even if Ange wanted to do an in-game management and say to Lo Celso, okay, after we score 2 goals, you come in and drop in here and you do this, those guys are not good enough to do it. They don't have the capacity.
I
so
think
you can make that
is
excuse for every manager that's struggling. So then the same excuse could be used for Ten Hag. Oh, well, he doesn't have the players. So you got to give him more time.
Listen. But at the same time, Ten Hag is in the final of the FA Cup this year. Without terrible United is.
Sorry, no, but that excuse, you can apply it to multiple managers, but you have to look at the situation context. So for Ten Hag, he has now had 2 summers and 2 Januaries. And the team that got battered by Crystal Palace the other night, 8 of the players that started and or came on, he bought. And some of them he heavily pursued and rejected others. So you do use that logic, but you apply that logic to every single situation and you assess it. You've only got to look at last season. I was just checking the information on this. Obviously, we've seen Leverkusen have an excellent season this year. Nobody would deny that. I was going to check one fact because I think I'm right on this. Yeah, I am. He was the manager. What's his name? I can't remember his name. Alonso was the manager last season, but they came 6th and they lost 12 games. If the standard is you didn't succeed year 1, therefore you get sacked, they wouldn't have just done. They wouldn't be on the course for a treble-winning season. What's helped him is his style being implemented for a further year. He hasn't like drastically changed the way he's played football. He's added more players in. I assume they bought players. I assume he got players in the summer. He's added more people to the system that's made it work. Now, I'm not suggesting that Big Ange is going to go on and do a treble next year, but this notion, and again, you can judge someone, I think, Will, year 1, you failed this year. But I think we have to get away from this notion of you failed, therefore you got to go. Because you have to give managers at times, if there's progression and you haven't lost a dressing room, time to make their team better. I'm not saying an infinite amount of time to make the team better, but there are some people out there that if year 1 United are not back to being one of the best teams in England, there are some Man United fans that will say not good enough, got to go. And I think that's a crazy standard to have year 1.
Yeah, but I think it's extreme to say like if you're not winning, then you have to leave. But I think if you're not winning anything, you should be under pressure. Like you shouldn't have 3-4 years of just no trophies.
I agree with you, bro. Will, I agree with you, but the problem is most people don't do that. It's either in or out. It's crazy conversations. I want to finish up on this point to move on to the next subject, but this says context is very important when it comes to cup competitions. People love to beat Arteta for his cup record, but he's been knocked out by City and Paul for 5 times out of 9. Arteta was a new manager, had to deal with COVID, a squad with crap players, a crazy wages, couldn't buy, had to sell. Everyone else uses Teta as an example, but most managers wouldn't have succeeded. I think again the context is key, as you say. Dayo, do you not even see him try to implement changes to his system? For example, Poch inverted Cucurella. Why not try Van der Ven at left back and start?
That's a terrible idea, putting Van der Ven left back, because we lose recovery.
The system's built around Van der Ven being the centre back and the fact that he can recover quickly, and the left back inverts needs to be quality on the ball and quality on the half term, which Van der Ven is a lot of things. I don't think he's necessarily the greatest centre back when pressured by people. So
we saw that at Newcastle.
Saying that Postecoglou needs to make all these changes doesn't make sense in my mind. What Postecoglou has done this year effectively is went, this is how I'm going to play. These players work. You can't ask me to change in game because who am I bringing on? Højbjerg isn't good enough. Emerson isn't good enough. So it's almost like he's putting everyone in the shop window and going, he works, he doesn't. This is the basis, which is what year 1 is for a lot of the. So the next manager coming in for United, if he finishes 5th next year, that's not a failure, because it's not like football stands still for everyone else. City don't just stop buying anyone just because United have got a new manager. Arsenal don't just stop buying anyone. United have got a new manager. Every other club
we do that. There's a saying that everyone does. So-and-so's got to win the league this year. Why just them? That's it. I've got to finish this. I've got to move on to the next subjects, guys. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time. But in life, there's no such thing as guaranteed success, especially in sport.
Agreed.
True. Maybe it's time to stop chasing names and get someone unknown to clean up and restart. Sonny, it is hard to find unknown managers in 2024 because of the internet, but I do get you at the base of your point. Before we move on to the big game and everything else and look at match bingo, has anybody else been shocked today by the announcement of the Player of the Year award and the disrespect shown to Rodri, the disrespect shown to at least one of the two Arsenal centre-backs? When you're seeing people on there like Van Dijk this season, who has no place being on that list, in my humble opinion, talk to me. Does this just show that Player of the Season awards are a sham?
Yeah, it does. Isn't Foden in the Young Player of the Year as well? And he's 24.
A Young Player of the Year is worse because, like, you can be 24 and be nominated for that.
And he's got what 100 and, correct me if I'm wrong, 154 Premier League appearances, and yet he's in the Young Player of the Year award. And look, taking my Spurs hat off, the two Arsenal centre-backs have been two of the 5 best centre-backs in the league. And I think only, was it Saliba's the only one in there? How Rodri's not in there as well, when, in my opinion, he's the most important player to any team in the Premier League and has been unreal. The awards system in this country are just absolutely terrible. I mean, Harry Kane, I think 6 or 7 years ago, he won the Golden Boot and something like 11 assists, but I think lost the vote. I can't remember who he lost to, but it was like by 41%. Like it just goes to show that these awards mean absolutely nothing, and they are just a waste of time. Who actually, do you think Foden, if he wins the Player of the Year awards, really going to care when he's trying to win a double? Like they're absolutely pointless in my opinion.
It's a fan voter one for anything. Having only 8 nominees to me feels a little bit short. I think you should have 10. If it's going to be a vote, you should have 10 anyway. And I certainly don't see why. The name that stands out to me there for being on that list is Isak. Like he's had a good season, but ahead of a Rodri, ahead of a Saliba, ahead of a Saka. You know, has Isak for Newcastle had a better season than Solanke for Bournemouth? I'd argue no. I'd argue what Solanke's done is bigger.
Ollie Watkins.
There's names like that which always confuse me on that basis.
I mean, he's got 20 league goals, right? Which is a very, very good achievement. His form in the last 2.5 months has been absolutely exceptional, Isak. But I do hear you. Solanke's at a worse team and must have a similar amount of goals. I get why Ollie Watkins is there.
Mm-hmm.
I do hear you. I mean, I've always felt this, whether it's the shortlist, whether it's the people that get into Team of the Year. I've had these arguments when it comes to the Scholes-Gerrard debate. I always felt this as a kid that they used to put certain players on these lists from certain teams so that everybody feels involved as best they can. We'll try our best to get a player from a couple of other teams that maybe don't need to be there. I remember watching Man United won a treble once. And Ginola won Player of the Year for a Spurs team that come about 7th or 8th. But there was definitely players in the Man United team that performed better. Like
didn't he win the Cup
David Beckham that season. And again, we look at other. Because of that season, he came second in the Ballon d'Or, but he wasn't the best player in the Premier League. None of it adds up. Either the Ballon d'Or's wrong or the Premier League's wrong. The player awards for me have always been a sham.
I swear Messi is still on the short list for Ballon d'Or, I think.
I'm going to go as far as, I was literally about to say, I'm going to go as far as to say all individual awards for players are nothing but a glorified popularity contest to me. I think you've seen many a time where there's a player will win an individual award, like a Ballon d'Or, like a Premier League Player of the Season, or FIFA. They'll make it to the FIFA Pro 11, and it's like, how have you missed out him? How have you missed out him? How have you missed out him? It's literally a case of the people that are making these decisions. These are the ones that we like. Some of the ones that Kevin De Bruyne won, I'm like, how has he possibly scammed his way to another?
I'm shocked Kevin De Bruyne wasn't nominated.
This is what I'm saying. How has he scammed his way when he's missed like 3-4 months out the season? This happens year on year. So to me, I don't even care about none of these awards. Honestly, I barely even check for who's nominated, let alone who won them. It could mean less to me, honestly.
And the young one is just a shambles as well. I thought Young Player of the Year was under 21s. It's apparently if you're 23 at the start of the season or something.
It should be limited by how many games you've played already or something, because some of these players, I mean, I get they're young by age, but experience-wise, it should be for players making you could even remove the word young, and it could just be breakthrough season. So you could be a championship player, but come to the Premier League at 26 and have a brilliant year. It should be like a breakthrough award that you can only ever win, in my opinion, once. It's the year that you come into because this year, the breakthrough player for me, although he's played some games before, is Cole Palmer, because it's the first time he's had a mainstay in a team and he's been sensational. So I would look at him and go, he is the breakthrough player of the year, as an example. But the young player of the year award, you get individuals that are 23 that have been playing for 5 years, got 200 or 300 games experience. It feels off. And then sometimes you get, if Foden wins player of the year, but not young player of the year, that don't make sense either. You can't be the best player in the league, but not the best young player in the league. And sometimes that happens. It's all, honestly, it's absolute. How do you see it from Will? And I want to ask this in a nice way. How do you see it from an American perspective? Because I know like MVPs and awards in the States, how are they perceived?
Yeah, I mean, like, so those kind of awards in like the States, bro, it usually goes to like, so for example, like basketball, like the player that has like the most points, has like the best stats. Same thing kind of like with football. It's usually given to like a quarterback because they have big numbers and they usually are the most important player of a team. But I think when it comes to like the international stuff, when it comes to your version of football, yeah, I think it definitely is just a popularity contest. A lot of it doesn't make any sense. And I definitely do agree with what Tom said with that. I think it's too short of a list of players. I think that it should just be open to more than, 8 players? And then I don't know how it works though in England, like if the fans are voting for that or if it's like the journalists. But yeah, I mean, it definitely is weird though.
We've got like 5 different players. I don't know which one's the actual relevant one. You've got the PFA, the FWA, the Premier League. Then there's all like these little ones for each sort. Like there's the North,
and each club's got their own one as well.
There's about 7 different awards.
Remember this. This is how you know they're nonsense. I swear, Ange Postecoglou won London Manager of the Year.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Because he did.
London Manager of the Year. London.
My brother's club, Leyton Orient, his manager got into a little bit of trouble because he put out a really funny tweet that said something along the lines of, I didn't. It's funnier than how I'm going to say it. It read funnier. It was like, I didn't know Celtic were a London team type thing. Or he said something like, it's good to know that I'm playing in the SPL or whatever it was, because he won it in like November. He won London Manager of the Year.
He won player Manager of the Month as well 3 reasons, right? Even just quickly, even like the individual awards in America, like the NBA, I think Jokic won MVP. And I'm like, how? Like, the player awards in general, it should just be scrapped. Like, does anyone really care about Manager of the Month, Player of the Month?
No.
Like, it's for me, they're just irrelevant awards.
Nah, but we can't act like fan bases don't care though, because if your player wins it or like if your manager wins it, then like
Madison won it,
tweeting about it.
And look at it now.
I'm not gonna lie to you. If anything,
Player of the Month is the most flawed one, by the way. You know, Kevin De Bruyne's never won Player of the Month.
Yes, you know, United. I think United have 3 Player of the Year awards this year. I think 3 or 4 Player of the Month awards. Sorry, not Player of the Year. I think we have like 3 Player of the Month awards. That should let you know that these and every time we won it, I was pissed. I wasn't celebrating it or using it to like hold over rival fans' heads. Yeah. I was like, how has this happened? This is
and it's always been like this. I remember sort of watching. I've watched 2 or 3 times. Stoke did it. It was like a documentary, and Stoke players were talking about how they got in trouble with the PFA. Because when they had to vote for who their player of the year was, they all sent back in Maradona's name. And it was like, no, take it seriously. They all admitted as well that sometimes what they do is they'll go, right, who's someone that we deserves it, but we don't want him to win it. So say it's this season. They go, right, Foden deserves it, but we don't want him to. So we're all going to vote for the other guy instead. Now, lots of players have spoke about doing this. And as soon as you hear that and you know it's widespread, you can't take the award seriously because, you know, people are voting like sort of strategically or biasly or for a joke. And so for me, the way I look at things is just they're not a great barometer for saying, you know, imagine Declan Rice wins more Premier League Player of the Year awards than Rodri. That doesn't mean he's a better DM than Rodri. Like that award isn't it. But
Terry, you all know that award shows are just money spinning events, right? You know that once you're gonna do an award show, you're getting mad sponsorship. I mean, most people don't realize because, like in my line of work, when events like that, the sponsorship money is what most of those guys are looking for. That's why they're coming up with London this award and this that and that award, or this organization wants to start an award. It's all because they're going to make money. It's business for them.
Yeah,
they don't really care.
We end up with like 9 player of the years.
Yeah, they don't really care because at the end of the day, their bank accounts are getting paid. Ting. And they can just issue out any award to whoever it is. They can also cash in on a bit of sponsorship because the sponsors want the players to endorse them. The people sponsoring them was like, oh, if you give it to this player, he can endorse us and maybe one of our ads in the future. We'll be able to get a leg in. That's all it is. So yeah, it's a nonsense thing.
Do you want to know how much of a farce this is? There's 3 main awards for the Premier League. You've got the FWA Footballer of the Year, the PFA Players Player of the Year, and the Premier League Player of the Season. All are voted for by different things, and I think so you agree with me then, Tom, that we have to discount the player awards in the Scholes Gerrard debate? I'd never count them anyway.
Top lad. That's confirmed, people. Well, I'm going to take Tom's word on behalf of the whole of the Liverpool fan base. Thank you, Tom.
Because if you go back to 2010-11, I've literally just pulled it all up here. You know, in 2010-11, we had 3 different Player of the Year winners. Scott Parker won 1. Gareth Bale won 1, and Nemanja Vidic won 1. So there was 3 different Player of the Years for one season. How does that make any sense?
Wasn't that when Gareth Bale had that unbelievable campaign when he got 20 league goals? Was that
I think it was.
But yeah, Dayo's right. It's about money. It's about making everybody feel involved, and especially when teams are struggling, you'll always get like, "Can we try and squeeze?" I mean, this season you can't do it for Man United. If one player really had an outstanding season, we weren't as bad as we were, they would squeeze a Man United player in there, and I know they would, because that way you get the Reds in, you get Man United fans on the website, you get everyone voting, you get everyone excited, and yeah, it's pointless in my opinion. Mo Gunner here says, have to disagree with who? Comdean. Who's that?
Do you mean comedian? I don't know how you spell that.
I don't know who that's meant to be.
It's Comdean, the other guy who sent a super chat in earlier.
I'm not remembering that. I didn't remember. Sorry. Arteta was giving the steps towards success with some deemed as failure. That's why his success is I think you mean to say slow. He was given time, others weren't given credit at the club.
And that's what I was saying. That's exactly what I was saying at the time.
Yeah,
but then how do you define success though? So with Arsenal, is that just success because they're just in the conversations now towards the end of the season?
No, it's context, quickly, isn't it? Like if Luton stay up this season, we can all say that's a successful year. But if I don't know, if Arteta is still in charge 2 years' time and hasn't won a Premier League trophy, then it's not been a success, is it? It's context.
I think, and you also have to realize what the context is, right? We're talking about a team that has not won the Premiership in 20 years and has not even challenged for the Premiership in majority of those 20 years, not even gone near challenging. In the last 6-7 years before last season, it was always Liverpool. It was either Liverpool, Chelsea, or Manchester United who were challenging for the title with Man City, against Man City. Arsenal was never in the conversation. And for us to have gone that low as a team, the first thing we wanted to do was, okay, we need to get back to winning ways. We need to be a team that is, because if you're challenging, you stand a chance of winning it. Like, that's the whole idea. So now the success is Arteta now has to go forward. They've given him the time. They've given him the backing. They've allowed him to spend the money, and they're going to back him again this summer. He now has to go forward and prove that with everything that he has told us, he can win trophies.
Arteta from this season onwards, I've said it, is winning trophies. So this season I wouldn't look at this season as sort of a success. I would look at it as a good season where they were competitive, but it wasn't a successful one because they didn't win a trophy. But because they're not going backwards, because the dressing room's still in a good place, I don't think there's any need to change the manager right now. But I wouldn't call this season success. And I think
but that's like how a lot of Arsenal fans talk about what Arteta has done is he's been successful or this is a success, but it's like he doesn't really have that much to show for said success. So I think, me personally, if they don't win the league this season, then I think Arteta has to be under a lot of pressure, like on the hot seat for next season. And if he doesn't get it done next season, I think that you have to sack him.
And
I know, but I hear this narrative all the time, and I'll defend Arteta on this because we're the same people who sit here and when we talk about the treble, which of course Man City won last season, and one of the cups that they won was the FA Cup. When we talk about it, we say they won the treble, and it's important that they won the FA Cup. Arteta has won an FA Cup in 4 years. Arteta has taken a team in his 4 years of being at Arsenal, has challenged twice for the title for the EPL, won an FA Cup. And it's only in 2 seasons that he's been at Arsenal that he hasn't challenged for anything. So when we sit down here, and there's there is a case to be made when you're building something to get somewhere and you're already challenging for it and you've already won something. So when people say, "Oh yeah, he hasn't won anything at all," it's like,
but that was the FA Cup with the bad squad that he had to hold on, the high wages and all this other stuff.
So hold on,
because without that squad, he has nothing to show for his time at Arsenal.
Listen. You want to say it's Unai Emery's squad when they were in 8th position, but take away the FA Cup that Arteta won with them. It's crazy.
No, nobody's taking that away, Dayo. My thing is, Dayo. My thing is, you can't say how bad Arteta had it because of the squad that he inherited with the high wages, the players were trash and everything else. But if it was not for that same squad, Arteta would have nothing to show for his
time. It's how he used, but what I'm saying to you is how he used. Listen, he comes in and uses the squad in a certain way. This same squad he knew was not good enough, but he says, listen, I'm going to play a certain way to get us at least out of the mud. He did win the FA Cup, whether by luck, by hook, by crook, by cranium, I don't care. The point is he got something first. And then he started gutting the club, what we were expecting him to do, which get these players out because we didn't like the players. We didn't think they were good enough. And he's come in now, used those same players, said, okay, I've won something, now I'm getting them out and I'm bringing my players. Now he has his players. Now he has no excuse next season. So my idea of when Arsenal fans say he has been successful is based off of the context of where we were as vis-a-vis where we are now. No, but that's what I'm saying.
The third biggest club in England, but how you guys talk about Arteta and the success is as if he took over a mid-table club and now has you competing.
The point is we weren't competing for 20 years, and then suddenly you have a coach who's got us back competing. What Arsenal was good at doing. Arsenal was always competing back with Sir Alex Ferguson days. It was Wenger and Fergie. When all that went down the drain, Arsenal was no longer competing. Arsenal was not in the conversations. Now we're in the conversations. Now we're competing. At least he's won one thing. I want him to win more. And the fact that we're not regressing.
Dayo, what do you class as competing?
And I'm saying, we're up there right now, competing for the title.
You have finished within 5 points of a league title twice in the last 20 years.
Well, I think we're going.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying in Arteta's period, that the reason we classify him and say what he has done so far has been a success for him as well.
I think we're going around in circles, and honestly, I don't really care about Arsenal to keep talking about Arsenal. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. To summarize what both your points are, it all depends on internal metrics. Are you meeting the bar of success? Are you meeting the bar of what the expectations were at the start of the season? Let's equate that to Arsenal. Was the bar this season that they had to win the league, otherwise it's a complete failure? No, because City is still around. For United, was the bar that they had to be closer to the people ahead of them in order for the season to be deemed acceptable? The answer is yes. They didn't do that, which is why it's a failure. And it's all about what your expectations were at the start of the season. If you weren't saying that Arsenal are favourites to win the league this season when the season started, you can't say them not winning it is an absolute failure. Those two things just can't happen.
Listen, I understand everybody's points, and I think that they all hold some water. It's all just about the context. I think it's so important because I think what Arteta has done, and maybe it's how people view football differently. There's been a number of squads in the last 20 years that have been able to get to FA Cup finals, and some of them have won them, but they've not been teams that have any possibility of winning a league title. Mm-hmm. So yes, you won a trophy, and that is success. But when you are one of the top teams, I think one of the biggest measurements of success is that you have the ability and you have the capability of winning your league title. And that's the hardest thing to win because it's over 38 games and you can't just have the Champions League. You can be okay at the start of the season, scrape through your group, and then be brilliant for 3 months at the end of the campaign and win the Champions League. With the league, you've typically got to be pretty damn good all year long. You can't have You can't, almost perfect now. So that's the standard you've got to get to a team to. So you could, to get a team that was nowhere near a title contention, to be in a title contender, you could see that as a type of success. The problem is everybody tries to put everything into a very binary, very polarized bracket of success is one thing and one thing only. And I don't think it is. But the bar keeps moving. So now that Arteta has built his squad, now that the rebuild is complete, the success is now judged on whether he wins trophies. But that doesn't mean you undo the other types of success, which was building a team that was nowhere near title contention into a title contending team. There's different phases that come into play. And you've seen this through all sports. And a very famous example, different reasons. But if you look, for instance, at Marshall University in the States, they suffered a tragedy, and the majority of their football team, American football team, died in the plane crash. They then restarted it. The manager that came in, who in the movie, if you watch the movie about it, Matthew McConaughey plays him. His record was awful for the next 4 or 5 years. But it was the foundation that rebuilt their program that eventually led to them winning major trophies. He's still a Hall of Famer because when and where he came in that university's time, there's context that's being applied. Now, I'm not comparing a team falling off because of poor management to a team being wiped out by an aeroplane crash, not in any capacity. But I think the logic remains the same. You have to look at when someone came in, who they were at the time, and what was going on, what they built. Doesn't mean, though, that Arteta should get away with never, ever being put to a standard of winning trophies. And I think that, for me, is the conversation. But I agree. There are some people that just want to say, everything, none of it's a success because he hasn't won the league. And then there are others that will probably say it's a success even in 10 years if he hasn't won the league. And I think both are wrong. I think there is nuance to this situation. And he should now, where Will is right now, this season, next season, the year after, he is judged on the trophies he wins. And that is essentially it for me personally. But viewers, give us your thoughts and feelings below. We've got some super chats on it. This says, should Liverpool go legal if they finish behind?
No, I would rather we didn't try and go to court and ask for a game to be replayed because we finished a point behind in the title race. I could not be done with the whole carry on that summer and the whole media shitstorm that would cause.
Why would they?
Because we wouldn't get it anyway.
No, why would they go legal?
Because there's the argument that you could say Liverpool were unfairly robbed of a result against Tottenham because the rules weren't applied.
Get the hell out of here! Next.
Exactly. Could you imagine that court case? Could you imagine us getting like witness statements in that court case? Jesus Christ.
Teta changed 25 players in the squad over 2.5 years. If you think that when you change that many players whilst winning, then you're being disingenuous.
That's true, but the whole point is the winning has to start soon. He can't just keep having the safety buffer of no.
It's time for the winning to start, Tom. But that's what I'm saying. Like we've seen him take this team to where it's now like people are like Arsenal is serious. Last season it was like, oh, fluke. They next year they're not going to challenge. It was a fluke that they were just lucky. Blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden we see now that it's like, oh my god.
That's also fair. If it was a fluke last year, then you can't have the expectations that you must win the league the next year. Like if you're being a normal, genuine person, you can't say Arsenal fluked it last year and then this season say if he doesn't win the league he's a failure because you don't even believe they're good enough to be there. But there we go. What's the perfect temperament? How aggressive and violent do you want your players to be, and how calm and collected? I mean, it's a random question.
Give me a team of Danny Carvajal's, the best player I've ever seen on a yellow card. How that man doesn't get sent off more times than he should do.
You don't want any violence. Right. Or a bit of aggression, a bit of a surgeon is key. Right. But you can do that whilst being calm and collected. Controlled aggression is what I would call it.
Yeah. So you want to Pepe? Give me a Pepe, give me a Sergio Ramos. You need at least two or three absolute lunatics.
You only need one or two like that.
Yeah,
my American
Sergio Ramos, Pepe, and then give me Roy Keane. Just give me those three.
My American bro just answered his own question about steps to success when talking about how Arteta's first squad helped him to get to the current squad.
No, so my main thing when I brought up about how people want to praise Arteta for the FA Cup is because then they try to also shit on that same team that gave him a trophy. Like that's my thing. So it's like you can't say that team was as bad or it was just so awful, but then if without them he wouldn't have.
But I think the argument is that team did very well to win an FA Cup, but was that team good enough to challenge for a league title?
No chance.
Okay, wait. But what would Arteta? So would Arteta have rather not won the FA Cup and came, let's say, third that year, losing the league by 3 points? Like, to me, the FA Cup is better.
So I don't know,
but it's better because now you have something to show for that season.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. But then we're looking back with hindsight right now. So would they have preferred no trophy in third that year, but then the year after coming third, come 8th and 5th and where they are? No, because that means there's no trophy in the last 4 to 5 years. But if coming third then meant the next year they challenged and the year after that they won the Premier League, you might find someone would go, well, I would sack. Again, hindsight's lucrative. If you knew that was trajectory because you started growing earlier, then maybe Arsenal fans would give up an FA Cup for a Premier League. I'd definitely give up an FA Cup for a Premier League. So that's the problem with those arguments. They're so that no one can win them, whether you're pro Arteta or not. They're just a circular argument that goes around and around and around in circles. But we need to move on because we're going to run out of time, guys. Although I am loving the debate on all of this. Terry, brother, City are getting away with cheating by settling, and you want the awards, VAR, offsides, etc. to be fair. Money talks. Well, look, we don't know if they're settling. There are rumours that they are settling, and the video we did about it, that you see the individuals talking about it, that it hasn't been corroborated yet. But many top dons think that it may. We'll see what the settlement is if and when it happens. I'm not going to judge it until we get any information. Wigan won the FA Cup. Were they a great team? Those got relegated that season as well.
Exactly what my point was going to be.
Yeah, I think
it's a cup competition. Will, you have to understand that in those kind of games, anybody can win in a cup competition. Like, you can be the worst team and get to the final. Did you give Dortmund the chance to get to the UCL final this year? Nobody gave Dortmund that chance, but Dortmund is there right now, and they stand a chance of winning it. The point is, when it comes to cup tournaments, anybody can. Arsenal may have had, as bad as those players were, we had some easy games to play, some easy teams to get to the semi-final. Yeah, we played some easy guys.
You look at Bayern Munich. You look at this. This is the thing where even for standards, Bayern Munich are sacking Tuchel for his league form, but they'd sacked him ever before he was out of the Champions League. And if it wasn't for his poor substitutions last night, he'd have made a Champions League final when he was getting sacked, and he could have won the Champions League. He was still going to get sacked. Yep. So I think winning cup competitions, again, if we're talking about the highest of the high standards, I look at most of the top clubs. Real Madrid, I think, is a little different because of who they are. That's Champions League and league form. You could essentially lose your job whilst winning one if you perform bad in the other. But for most other clubs, if your league form isn't great, even if you win trophies, you run the risk of being sacked, unless you're a much smaller club where they don't expect to be up the top of the table. So if you come 8th and you're a mid-table club with half the budget of the top boys and you win an FA Cup, that is a gargantuan season in terms of success. Yep. But obviously, speaking of gargantuan, massive game this weekend, guys. Arsenal take on Manchester United at Old Trafford. How are you feeling about it, Dizzy? And how do you think the game will go?
I think that anything less than an absolute hammering is a mercy that United fans don't deserve. Actually, no, I take it back. Anything less than United players don't deserve, and anything less than the manager doesn't deserve. I think United have been so poor this season that it's if we come out with a draw, I think you'll be happy. I genuinely don't think we win another game out of the games that we have left, and I have felt that way for a while. I'm debating whether or not I tune into the game because that's just the way that United season's gone. Apparently, Martinez and Rashford are back in training now, which should be some sort of hope for us. But then again, we see, you chop and change players and it's the exact same outcome because the manager doesn't want to switch up the way that he's playing. So, yeah, to be honest, I think 3-0 would be a decent day for United. If we can fluke a win, I won't even be that happy about it, to be honest.
I think you're a little bit... you sure you got that much confidence going into it? I mean, you sound very confident right now. You got to remember Arsenal are second in the league here. Sure, only 3-0.
Bro, the matter is they can see 3-4 shots.
Your team are done now. That Palace game was it. Any player who was still clocked in, they clocked out now. They clocked out. Any player who was still trying to do anything, they're not trying to do anything anymore. That was it. Yep. Arsenal, the only thing that could potentially drag some United players back is if at half-time Arsenal have somehow not scored. And then they go, oh, could we just could we just and then 5 minutes later when they're actually trying again, they concede, and it's back to just there's Arsenal again. Arsenal are playing clinical, effective football right now.
Mm-hmm.
Arsenal will go to Old Trafford and do a job. Arsenal will take this to the final day. I don't see Arsenal slipping up anywhere. I don't, even if Arsenal was to have a relatively poor day in front of goal, by metrics that United have put up this season, they will still have around 30 shots. One of them will inevitably find its way in the back of the net. And Arsenal's defence has been so good this year that a pretty blunt Manchester United attack, which doesn't even know its best one, won't score past it against Saliba or Gabriel or Raya. So I don't see any world where United get anything out of this game at this point in the season.
Old Trafford is a bogey ground for Arsenal, man. Let's not do this. Like, look, I know we're going to win, but it's not going to be easy. Nobody should come and paint that picture like, oh, it's just going to be a walkover. We're going to go there and smash them 3 or 4-0. Look, I will take a comfortable 2-0 and walk away from there. I'm not there to come and try and overdo anything because this is Old Trafford where we've not had a good record. Even when we were playing some of our best football back in the day, we just didn't have any joy there. And there's that factor to consider. It's the same way when we played Tottenham in the derby. I was telling everybody, I said, well, we're going to win, but it's a derby and anything can happen. And look at it. They almost came back at the end of it. It's a derby. We were 3-0, 3 goals up, and they almost came back. Like, these things happen in certain games. You know, this might not even be because United are going to come and show up and the players are going to show up and play very well. It's just because it is just what it is. It is just like, so for me, it's like we then have to find how to break this bogey, hoodoo ground again. It's like go there, just like what we did with Etihad, going to the Etihad, and we played a different style. Even though we did not win, we did not let them beat us. We had never won at the Etihad. I'm not saying we're coming to play a draw with you at United. All I'm saying is we're going to find a different way to just score our goals, maybe use our set pieces, and then just defend and ride it through. But this idea that everybody's saying because United is so bad, Arsenal is going to come in there and we're just going to smash them 6-0. If they do that, I'm telling you, if that happens, I will be shocked. I know we're going to win, but I don't think it's going to be a steamrolling. That's all I'm saying.
I think
Arsenal are going to drop points. I'm not gonna lie. I think I think Arsenal are going to drop points. I think that
we're not dropping points. You just don't like Arsenal.
Let Will land, please. Let Will land.
So it's kind of like back to the point that Dayo was making in terms of Arsenal usually do not do that well at Old Trafford, and I think honestly United only have 2 things really to play for the rest of the season. You got the FA Cup at the end, and then I think those players know that they have a chance to end Arsenal's season because it's over if you drop points. So I think they'll be up for it, and I think if Arsenal do win, I don't think it's going to be a battering. I think it'd be like a 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1 kind of game. But I definitely do think it's going to be nerve-wracking for Arsenal fans. I don't think it's going to be a walkthrough like how people are saying.
When City have played first,
one second, Henry. I'll come to you in a second. What makes you feel, Will, that Man United, who, if we're honest, there hasn't been a good performance from us for months now. What makes you feel they'll be able to galvanise and put in a performance that could potentially stop Arsenal this weekend?
I just think it's the hatred that the two clubs have for each other. Like, I honestly think that the United players will be driven by the fact that they know if they do something today, or not today, but when that game happens, it's over for Arsenal. And I think they would want to be able to be the ones to say that they ended Arsenal's title run. So that's what I think. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's how the game played out and they end up somehow getting lucky and getting a win or a draw.
I heard all of that talk when it was time to end City's treble run. And what did we do? We conceded in 2 minutes. And that was actually playing for something. That was playing to stop the historic treble from being done. And so I'm not trying to hear all of this. So it's a derby, the ball is round. You got a puncher's chance. All that nonsense, I'm not trying to hear it, bro. We've played exactly as who we are. We played as the 8th best team in the league. We've got a minus goal difference. We concede 20 shots a game. I am not trying to hear none of that. I'm not going to lie to you.
What are you saying, Henry? Listen, I'll come to my point in a minute, but I like what Will said. Henry, what are you saying, bro?
If you look at this season, when City have played first, Arsenal have normally gone on to struggle or lost or drew that game. Like, I think they played first when Arsenal lost to Fulham. I think City played first when Arsenal drew to Fulham. However, this Man United team stinks. They're going to concede probably 25 to 30 shots. With Man City probably going to beat Fulham kind of adds that added pressure, you could say, if City do get 3 points. But I think Arsenal will win. Like, I think it will go to the very, very end of the game of the season. And as it stands, I think City will do it. But the other side of me thinks Man United are the ultimate party poopers. And Liverpool have had nearly 100 shots in the 3 games against Man United. I think they scored 5 goals. So Man United have shown in the past that they can like derail things. And if Man United somehow...
The point there, though, Henry, though, is Arsenal have Bukayo Saka and Kai Havertz and Odegaard, players who are actually in decent form in front of goal. I've got Darwin Núñez, who was too busy drawing horses on Instagram instead of finishing his chances.
Yeah. I get it. Like
I had Luis Diaz, who doesn't score goals anyway. The chances never fell to anyone decent for us. And all our players who he did fall to were out of form. Arsenal are in a clinical mode right now. They will just score the goals. And unlike us, we did end up scoring 5 goals. Our biggest problem wasn't the fact that we scored 5 goals, the fact that we conceded, 6? Yeah, 6. Like, Arsenal won't concede. Let's say Arsenal only get 2 goals. I don't see Arsenal conceding 2. That's the bigger difference. Arsenal's defence is much more solid and organised than ours was.
Yeah.
Well, what are the injuries going to be like for that game? Because I know against Palace, you guys had Casemiro at center back. You're out there with 38-year-old Johnny Evans.
Well, the problem that we're going to have is Johnny Evans will probably play the game. Lissandro's back in training, but I don't think he should be anywhere near the starting lineup yet. I know he's in training, but this man's been out injured for the better part of 15 months. He's the reason that the other 2 injuries have kind of happened is because he's been rushed back twice. And I worry because actually I'd like to see him on the bench, maybe get some minutes and maybe try in the next 2.5 weeks to build him up for the FA Cup final, because if we can get as many players back for that as possible, it gives you a marginally better chance. There's a City fan, right? It keeps writing in the comments, Terry, where was this chest? Why did you have chest when you played Man City, but not us? I don't remember this season saying we're going to beat City. Secondly, I haven't given an opinion yet. But look, people have asked me for months now, would you like Arsenal to win so they win the league? And I'm honestly, we're on the eve of the game, almost on the eve of the game, and my mind is changing. And that's because I'm a Man United fan. I love my football club. I don't want to lose. The fact we've dropped down to 8th, the fact that we could get really embarrassed by them this weekend, that makes me want to beat them. It makes me want to win the game. It's almost, but then there's like a counteracting thought in my head, which is, yeah, but if you do that, there's City doing a 4P, which also hurts. But I'm just in this position where I'm not even really thinking about other clubs at the minute. We're in such free fall, and we've got an FA Cup final coming up, and I am desperate for us to find some type of form before that game. I don't think it's going to happen. It is. People will use the word hopium. It is. It's pure hope. And I do hope we turn up this weekend against Arsenal. I hope we're the party poopers. I hope we look better. I hope we look stronger.
Bruno fit for the game. Like, it's
Bruno, I would assume Bruno will be back, but we don't know yet. But, I hope Rashford and Lissandro come back in and have amazing games. I hope Højlund can sort himself. I just hope. I want us to win the game now. And that's just because I don't know. I just feel so much pain watching Man United at the moment. I don't want to feel more at the weekend. And although it could lead to City creating a record that my team may never touch, just at this particular moment in time, I don't want that. But
Terry, would you take a 1-0 win and you guys play very well and Arsenal wins? Like, we beat you 1-0, but you guys played very well. Like, you look amazing. No. Would you take that? Hold on. So you would rather party poop on me just so that City can do a 40? Right? I'm giving you see.
Listen. I get where Dayo's coming from. It's a really good question. I'm talking about form as you build up to the final. Potentially, I'm going to have to see how I feel after. Do you know what? This isn't me sitting on the fence. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that until it happens. Right now, I just want Man United to put a bit of pride back into Man United. That's really how I'm feeling. But that's what I want to happen. What I fear happening is destruction. What I fear happening is an abomination. What I worry about happening is an early goal from you guys playing fast-paced, and then we collapse at home and hold 4, we hold 5, we hold 6, because that is plausible in this game. It is plausible with the holes in our midfield, the lack of certain players, the confidence being on the floor, the fact that Palace, who, by the way, I've actually watched 65 minutes of the game back because I'm a glutton for punishment. They weren't that good. They were good. They weren't amazing.
Man United were just so bad.
We were so bad. And if we are anywhere near that bad this weekend against Arsenal, it could be a baptism. It could be a circumcision in front of with no anesthetic in front of 75,000 people. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just sort of in this mindset of please, Man United, put in a performance. I need it.
I'll answer Dayo's question. No, I won't take a 1-0 cagey game where Arsenal win, but we played great football, simply because moral victories are out the window for United this season. There is no more moral, maybe we could get something going for this. No, that's over with. That's absolutely over with now. The only game that matters to United at this point, unless we win the games, is the City FA Cup final. If we can win that game will mean something to United fans.
But you need some form to go into that game. If you get absolutely slapped, like 4-5-0 against Arsenal, and I don't know,
that's what I'm saying.
You need something to go into that game because City will steamroll you.
You guys just give me a 2-0 win and play very well.
If the options are we play awfully and get battered, or we play really well and lose 1-0, then of course I'm picking the smaller defeat and playing well.
Of course.
But right now I want to.
I'm saying, unless we win, it really doesn't matter because United players' confidence is on the floor anyway. So if they put in a performance and still lose, it might do further damage to their confidence anyway.
Even when we lose.
My reservations is just like it always seems like towards the business end of the season, Arsenal, like if something can go wrong, it usually does for them. Like it always seems like, okay, Arsenal are in position to do this, right? Arsenal could come fourth this year. You gotta win this game, or you guys were ahead by 8 points towards the end of the season.
It's only happened 3 seasons. It's only happened 3 seasons in a row. Well, in fact, 2 now.
No, let him finish, please.
Yeah, point is, it just seems like if something will go wrong for Arsenal, if something can go wrong, I should say, then it usually just will. Like that's just how I've been noticing that trend. Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, like even when you guys were playing Bayern and like all the fans were acting like Bayern Munich were just bums because they didn't win the Bundesliga. And I remember on Twitter it was like hashtag, it was like pray for Bayern Munich. And then you end up playing them. They have no fans in the first leg. You can't win that game, and then you go to their ground and then you guys lose, even though you guys were the favorites. So it's just like what can go wrong will go wrong for Arsenal. So I've just kind of accepted that.
So correcting a couple of things that you just said. First and foremost, we weren't the favorites against Bayern Munich because we're just back in the Champions League for the first time in 10 years.
You actually were. I'm a betting man, Dayo. You actually were.
Hold on.
On the odds, they were favorites.
On the odds, yes.
On the odds,
betting wise, yes.
So betting wise, yes. But I'm saying, as talking about people who are teams that have played in the tournament consistently over the years, we just came back. This is Arteta's first Champions League. So anybody who was saying we were favorites against Bayern Munich is just lying to themselves. We all know that your league form does not translate to UCL. That's why people like Borussia Dortmund, who as well did not win their league, are in the final right now. It doesn't matter what your form is in the league. It's a cup tournament. You go in there, do your business. You can make it to the end. That's number one. Number two, this idea that everything that will go wrong for Arsenal in the tail end of the season when they're challenging for something will always go wrong. How many times has Arsenal challenged for the title in the last 4 years? How many times? Just twice.
In the last 4.
In the last, I'm saying how many times? I'm saying last year and this year, right? So let's go in the last 10 years. How many times? In the last 15,
I'd say
how many?
3, maybe 3.
3. In the last 15, how many times? 3 years. In the last 20, how many times?
Just limiting it to title winnings is a little bit disingenuous. If you go top 4, there was a time under Arteta where he didn't make top 4 when you should have done it. Just because it wasn't a league, you've got to factor in where
I hear you, right? I hear you. What I'm saying is this idea that you want to paint a narrative that everything that will go wrong will go wrong. We're talking about 2 more games at the end of the season. When has Arsenal at any given time, right? The only time was the top 4 against Tottenham 2 seasons ago when it was about a couple of games, and I think we lost the last game. We lost to Tottenham, I think. or who did we lose? I don't remember who we lost to, but that was when we lost to the top 4 position. That was the one time. Last season, yes, nobody even expected us to be in the title race. So the idea that all of a sudden now, everything that'll go wrong, we weren't even expected to be top 6 at the beginning of the season. That's what everybody was saying.
You bought it still, though.
Yeah.
If you have something in your hands and you fumble it,
no. I'm not saying we didn't bottle. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we didn't bottle. What I'm saying is there's this narrative that people are painting to make it seem like Arsenal has been so competitive in the last 10 years consistently, and every time they get to the tail end of the season, they bottle it. It's happened a couple of times. We've not even been there. We've not been there enough.
At the top of the table.
We've not. So what do you want to say about Liverpool, who has been challenging Man City for the last 5 years?
Bought it.
Exactly. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you? No, I mean, it doesn't make any. Because I don't get it. I don't get it.
I'll just go back to 16-17. Arsenal miss out on top 4 to Liverpool by a point on the final 2 games of the season. 17-18, Arsenal finished 6th. Poor season, all things considered. 18-19, Arsenal miss out on Champions League football after losing 3 of their last 5 to Tottenham. 19-20, you won a cup, but you finished 8th. 2021, you finished 8th. 2021-22, you were in pole position to get top 4 ahead of Tottenham. Then you lost 2 of your last 5, including 2 Tottenham. Last year, in pole position to win the title, threw it away in the last 8 games. So the idea that Arsenal, just because it's not been titles every time, there have been expectations-wise, there's been multiple times recently where you should have got top 4, and it went wrong towards the tail end of the season.
I do agree with what Will said. I don't mean in terms of title races specifically, but I think that's the one thing I would say is true. Arsenal's collapse in seasons gone by is a renowned thing. And I think what he's saying is, if Arsenal this weekend, and I make him right, if Arsenal this weekend mess up against this Man United team, lose, I think it will hurt you more than any other team right now, because we are so bad. Genuinely, we have conceded more shots on target, more shots on goal this season than any other team, including the relegation fodder. We've actually conceded more shots per game than that record-breaking Derby County side 15 plus years ago that went down with record low points. That's how poor we've been. You lose to that, and it essentially ends your season. I'm not putting it down to as big a collapse as you've seen Arsenal have in the past, where throughout February and March they've fallen out of every competition. But it would hurt, because you should be, by hook or by crook, you should be winning this game when you look at the form of both teams, the way we're playing, plus things like, listen, I don't put a lot of our situation down to injuries, but also with their injury problems as well. You couple it all in, there is no excuse for Arsenal this weekend. You should be winning. You should be winning relatively comfortably, and you should be pushing this league title until the final day of the season. For it to go wrong for you now would be horrendous. We've got some super chats I want to do here. First one says, I don't like City, but if they deserve a 4-peat, let them have it. I can't have that logic either, though. Like, I can't, just because they deserve it doesn't mean I want them to have it. You're wishing them to lose is just pure hatred. Yes, I do hate my rivals. What is wrong with that? You can't have Liverpool win 20 Premier Leagues and you want Arsenal to win. What does that make? Well, it makes it better for me.
Makes a long day for United fans, regardless of who wins. That's what it is.
It's a personal preference. Harold here says, worry if Arsenal win the Premier League, Man City go into the final with the FA Cup, their only chance of silverware, and they have a point to prove against us. It's a very good point. I never thought about that. It's a very, very good challenge. Madrid and City, glory hunters, see us losing. I'm shocked. I don't think,
How are Real Madrid glory hunters?
No, I think you're talking about me, because I'm a Madrid fan.
Okay, just because Will's a Real Madrid fan, how is he a glory hunter?
I mean, look, people act like you don't pick teams based off success. I mean, I'm a Real Madrid fan because of James Rodriguez from that 2014 World Cup. And then Madrid signed him. I didn't know too much about the sport like that. Started following.
And there's nothing wrong with it, mate. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Comedy in here also said, Rich coming from the perennial bottlers, Liverpool. It's true.
I mean, I can take it from a lot of clubs. I'm not taking it from the club that have zero European pedigree. And even if you think, even if you want to put
stop perpetrating things that are not true.
Hold on. Even if you want to put us as the perennial bottlers, then that means my point carries weight because I've seen it with my club, so I can speak from experience and say your club are also the same as us.
Great point. The only way we'll shake this bottle moniker is to win things. Until then, we'll have to hold it. I think that's very true, Reggie. Tevin here says, I've said it before, Terry, for 4 league wins in 34 years, 34 years, we should not have chest. I think you should this time round. Can anyone see City dropping points this weekend?
Who are they playing?
They play Fulham.
Away to Fulham.
No chance. Fulham are a bogey team, though. Like, they've beaten Man United, they've beaten Spurs, they've beaten Arsenal. They've got points off Arsenal home and away. They absolutely
aren't in great form, though.
Yeah, no, they're not. Their form is, I think they've won 1 of their last 7 games. I think City could quite easily go and score 5 goals there.
The only thing that City are dropping is like 5 goals. They're not dropping points versus Fulham.
Yeah, I can't see it either, to be fair. I can't see it either. But it would make the Man United Arsenal game even more interesting if City were to drop points, because then imagine Man United took points off Arsenal after City dropped points. That moniker that they're talking about of getting rid of, you wouldn't be able to live it down. You wouldn't be able to live it down with how bad we are. Breaking news has just come through, by the way. Graham Potter has declined the chance to become the Ajax head coach. The 48-year-old Englishman held talks with 4-time European champions and emerged as a league contender, known to have been impressed by Ajax, but felt the project was not right for him at present. That is from David Ornstein.
Project is right. A little trip down to Old Trafford, set it back up with Sir Jim, go to OT, revitalise that club. He didn't want to do it in Holland. He wants to do it in home shores in Manchester.
But the thing is, you guys all laugh at us for looking at Tuchel's and Flicks. And then when there's managers that you would look at and put in the bracket of the rebuild manager, you also laugh. Who should we be getting, in your guys' opinions? Who is the person we can employ where you guys won't laugh? Like, genuine question. Who isn't a win now manager or a project? Like, who is it that we're not going to get ridiculed for bringing in?
You're looking for a unicorn. That's Vagazi. That manager that's going to be the perfect candidate does not exist, because I think people are actually don't realize how big of a job that's going to be, because you're talking 70 to 75% of the squad won't be there in 2 years. You've then got to completely change the way the football's played. You've got Rashford's future. There's so many question marks that need to be answered. Even if it's going to be a De Zerbi, a lot of fans are going to go, yeah, but look at his last season at Brighton. There's no perfect candidate. You just got to choose someone and stick with it for a couple of years, get rid of some squad, and then eventually get a win now manager.
You know what Tom's doing? Now I just clocked what Tom's doing. He's hoping against hope that we hire an absolute bum so that when Arne Slot fails, he can hide behind, well, United also hired a bum, so they're worse than us. That's what he's doing.
Wait, Tom, question. Do you think that
the most interesting thing about all that is the damage Erik ten Hag has done to the reputation of bald managers. A bald manager is about to three-peat the league potentially, and yet everyone just thinks being bald is a bad thing to be as a manager.
And the Eredivisie. He's done irreparable damage to the Eredivisie.
Wait, Tom, quick question, bro. Like, how do you feel about Slot, though? Like, do you think he's going to be a success at Liverpool? Because I think you guys are finished. Like, I think it's over for Liverpool.
He's got the perfect structure to be a success.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
That's the end of the... He's got the perfect structure to be. Whether he will be or not, I have no idea. But he's got the right people above him to be a success.
Can we just fantasize about them being a mess?
I think dark times are ahead at Anfield. Dark times,
yeah.
I think my main
run the football club. That's the only difference. We've got very smart people who are some of the best in the industry at what they do. That's what I always want. I always said at the time when Klopp announced he was going, give me Edwards and his team and whoever they want over the manager I wanted in Amorim. But he gets his guys up above him and everything. I always wanted Edwards back because Edwards is seen as one of the best in the business. His team is seen as one of the best in the business. We were not going to ultimately get a manager who's one of the best in the business. That they weren't going to come to us. We weren't going to go for them. So I needed to go get best in class somewhere, and that was higher ups. Edwards and his team had just as much of an input on the success at Liverpool as everyone else in that time did, because they were the guys who were bringing in the players. They were the guys who were identifying these players. So getting them back in now, is it going to be more risky because we've not got a manager as good as Klopp? 100%. But there isn't a manager as good as Klopp on the market, so I've got to stick by their choice, and it'll be Edwards who lives and dies on it. For the record, though,
even the team he built at Spurs,
he'll be more of a success than Ten Hag. He'll be more of a success than Ten Hag. So
if you guys got Ruben Amorim, what do you think?
Sorry. Though.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, like, when you have a legendary manager leave your club, usually the guy that comes after him fails because now everybody wants to compare him to what Klopp was doing. Everybody's gonna expect that same level of success right away. And I know that you were talking about what's the guy's name? Like Edwards and whatnot, but I just think FSG are a terrible ownership group, and I don't really think that they care about your club like that. And I also believe that you guys are gonna lose a few key players this season. I know that the reports came out like last week, that Salah's thing. I don't believe that at all. I think it's easy to say that until Saudi comes in with a big offer for him and for your club. He only has 1 year left on his deal. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold could possibly leave as well because his contract runs out after next season. Why hasn't he signed a new deal? You also got to maybe replace Van Dijk. I think Luis Diaz is being linked with the move to PSG, Barcelona.
Oh, I think
Darwin Núñez may leave as well. I just don't see what Liverpool have going on right now as a recipe for success. I definitely think that you guys are going to go back to being like around 4 through 6. I think that's how it's going to end up.
Yeah, it's going to be a real interesting one. Sorry, over to you, Dayo.
I mean, based off of all you're saying, yes, a lot of changes are going to happen at Liverpool with the players and the new coach coming in, and I'm sure Liverpool fans would be okay with changing some of their players, right? But they will still be up there because they're a well-run club right now. The people who are there running the club now are guys who know how to run a football club. You might not like the owners. That's a big difference. That's a different thing entirely. But when you put the right people at the job and they know how to scout, they know the reason. One of the reasons why Man U, for example, has this big issue with the players and people are criticizing all the players that Erik ten Hag bought is he was the one who decided on those particular players. He picked them, not the scouts. Right. So of course, with Liverpool, there is a structure in place. So I don't think they will drop off so much. I think Slot will come in. They'll do well. They'll do well to be top and around, maybe top 4. Getting Champions League, getting around there. Maybe not win anything immediately, but once he gets his own team in a year or two, with the right management behind him, I don't think Liverpool is dropping off like that. I don't think they're going to be like
the good thing is
it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, to see a Liverpool go to like 10th or 11th.
No, we won't fall that
with
far.
The system, with the system
I don't
in
have
place,
to see Slot make his transfers. Nice. I'm not going to have a Ten Hag situation where it gets to the summer and all of a sudden I'm seeing Liverpool buy half a Feyenoord squad. That's not going to happen. I know that we're not going to
I agree. I think Liverpool are in trouble if Slot's got to wait for his players. This shows that whatever they did under Klopp wasn't sustainable beyond him. And I think with the way football clubs have to be run now, because you're never going to have a manager. You're never going to have a manager that stays at a place for 25 years. Clubs have to be run in a way where the club has a philosophy or an ethos. And like Real Madrid are a great example here because they don't really have a playing philosophy in terms of not like an Ajax or a Barcelona do. It's a little bit more. I don't like the word freestyle. It's a bit more old school. And that's what I really love, by the way, about their semi-final with Bayern Munich. It just felt like what I would consider to be a bit old man now, but proper football. But they essentially try and buy the best players possible, the best youngsters possible, and they try and get the best manager possible and put it all together and win. But they're consistent in that approach every single time. Even when they foul, they continue with it. If you guys are now saying we're going to try and change our style of football and play like a Dutch team, that's when it will take you 3 or 4 years, and there's no guarantee it's going to improve. You guys have got to say, this is your squad. We'll buy you 3 or 4 players, but Edwards is not, in my opinion, going to do for Slot what he wouldn't do for Klopp. And he didn't buy Klopp's players. He bought Liverpool's players. And the Klopp signings are the Darwin Núñez's and the Diaz's of this world.
That's the big thing. That's why I want Edwards to have to say, because
you will.
Obviously, some people won't have read into it. Edwards wanted to get rid of Henderson after the COVID year. He had all the numbers and data, and he wanted to replace him with some Brazilian fella from Lyon called Bruno Guimaraes. And Jurgen Klopp went above him, went to the board and went, no, you give Henderson a new deal. And then that's what severed the relationship. But Edwards always had this eye. Edwards and his team were always finding these talents. Were always bringing the best talent.
Edwards was more important for Liverpool than Klopp.
It's a symbiotic relationship, isn't it? Edwards can bring in so many players, but I don't think Slot will have the same level of success in terms of play development that Klopp did, because I don't think Slot could develop a player like a Mohamed Salah or a Sadio Mane. But the thing is, Slot won't need to, because we're shopping in different markets now than when we were shopping with Jurgen Klopp in them early years.
No,
but I think Klopp worked miracles at Liverpool, though, because I think you could have won a lot more if whoever was their higher-ups, like, I'm not too familiar with Liverpool's landscape and who was bringing in players when he was there for most of that time, but I think the board, the owners, whoever, failed Klopp, and I think he could have won a lot more. You guys could have been way more successful than what you were, but you guys just never backed him.
The owners deserve a lot of the blame. Klopp also deserves blame. Klopp is a very loyal man, and whilst that is one of his biggest sort of assets as a manager, it's also his like fatal flaw, if you want. We held on to way too many players for way too long. Therefore, it wasn't the same cycle that successful football clubs have, where they get rid of them in their peak, i.e. what United were under Fergie, getting rid of Van Nistelrooy while he was still bagging 20 goals, whilst he was still seen as one of the best strikers. We were keeping hold of players for too long. They were falling off a cliff, and they were missing the opportunity to buy the best replacements in market. We were taking gambles on Núñez because he had a decent game against us in the Champions League. And that's where the fall-off started to happen. What we had in them prime years, we weren't spending loads of money when we were successful either. But we had the right structure. We had a recruitment team that knew exactly what the manager needed and knew exactly what the team needed and operated on that basis. When they went, we started to operate on, well, who do you think is good? I watched such and such, we got scout reports here. It wasn't the same clinical, effective method. And all of a sudden it became more volatile. It became more hit and miss. That's the difference. What Klopp done, I will never downplay, because he is our greatest manager in the Premier League era. But it wasn't just Jurgen Klopp on his own who achieved that. And Jurgen Klopp does have a hand in why we've ended up in the situation we've ended up in.
I think the biggest mistake they made at FSG was allowing Klopp to pick players, because most managers in the modern day era can't run football clubs. They're not scouts. They're head coaches. They're not trained and brought up in football in the same way that the previous generation were. The last sort of remaining bastion of that era is Ancelotti. Everybody else really is a head coach. They coach the team. Of course, they have an input, and of course, they have a say. And of course, the longer they're at a club, they have power. But the old-fashioned, like, football managers used to manage the entire football club. That is not what most managers do nowadays. They are in charge of the first team.
They're head coaches.
They're head coaches. And that's how Europe's been for years. When I was a kid watching Champions League football, and Fergie would be talking, they used to bring up the graphics and say head coach, and everybody else was head coach. I was like, Dad, what do you mean head coach? And my dad's like, well, most clubs on the continent don't have managers. They have head coaches. They have presidents that run the football clubs who are very, very important. So there's always been a difference. Terry, how can I get on one of your streams? Let us know find KJ on Twitter. It's at KJX something. I don't know his full Twitter. KJ, put it in. I don't know everyone's ats. That'd be weird if I did. We'll get you on some match reactions. Unai Emery did blow top 4 before, but we haven't consistently bottled it enough to get that title.
Yeah, Tom already did it.
I didn't start with Unai Emery. I started. It was Wenger 1 year, then Emery, then Arteta, and it was 5 times out of 8 years. That is kind of enough in the modern day to get stuck with the tag of when it gets to the back end of the season.
It goes back longer than that. Look, I want to give a shout out to our title sponsors today, Match Bingo. This is my official Match Bingo card for the Manchester United Arsenal game this weekend. You can go and get yours right now as well by scanning the QR code on the screen or clicking on the link below. It's an amazing game to play. It's an easy game to play. The problem with my bingo card, though, it says Man United have got to score for me to at least get my full house. They're giving away over £1,000 to the winner. And it's like £2 a card. So get yourself signed up, join in with the fun. And the best element is a lot of the proceeds goes to a charity of your choice. So when you're setting up your account, make sure you select where you want the proceeds to go to, whether it be cancer research or the Alzheimer's Society or wherever it may be. Get yourself signed up to Match Bingo right now. Gentlemen, look, I want to thank you all for coming on today and having your say. It's always a pleasure to speak football with you boys. Viewers, super chatters, all of you, amazing. You know how much respect, time, and love I've got for you. I want to shout out everyone as well that's subscribed to the Squad channel. We're just pushing past 15,000 subscribers on our new channel, which is amazing. So thank you to everybody. We're actually in the studio tomorrow recording again, which is going to be fun with Adam Charles Henry Wright, who's on the show now, and Don and myself. So very excited about that. But Will, Henry, Dayo, Tom and Dizzy, always a pleasure, boys. Everybody else, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see